Welcome to the Unearthed Man podcast, the journey to becoming a conscious man. Hey all, Stephen here and welcome to episode 59 of the Unearthed Man podcast. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Matthew. I was grateful for his openness and willingness to discuss his thoughts on eldership versus leadership. My guest today has sparked a memory from 2015 when I had the opportunity to spend time in Broken Hill. For those unfamiliar with Broken Hill, it's around 850 kilometres northwest of Melbourne, 1,140 west of Sydney, and about 520 kilometres northeast of Adelaide. So pretty much what you'd say it's in the middle of nowhere and nowhere near any major cities. You may also be aware of a mining company called BHP. So it originated in Broken Hill. Now, given the devastation mining has had on the land and the minimal consultation with the First Nations peoples, I'll leave that topic for another podcast. I definitely would be interested in my guest views, and you'll soon understand why as we get to that. But for me, there's a lot of devastation happening without consultation, and it probably shouldn't be happening at all. Anyway, back to the story. So whilst in Broken Hill, I was informed of a wildlife and sculpture park, which is about 2 kilometres out of town. I headed out there after work to check it out. This is when I had my first, what I would say is a deep actual connection. The sculpture park is up in a high rise looking back over Broken Hill. Now, whilst up on the rise, I realised I had no reception and no one knew I was out there. Now, this is an area that would welcome venomous snakes and other items around. So I suddenly became overwhelmed and a little panicked because I knew I also had not told anyone I was out there, but I didn't have any phone signal as well. So in that panic state, I was bit concerned about what was going on. Just then I glanced to my left and standing 2 to 3 meters away from me was this beautiful kangaroo. And it was just standing there, just looking across at me. Now, as I started to head back down to the car park, heading for safety, the kangaroo gently hopped alongside me and kept glancing in my direction. I was taking the path that was winding down through all the rocks. It was taking the rough route. Every time I stopped, it also stopped and looked across at me. I realized at this point that it was more than just a kangaroo hopping beside me. It was a spirit guide that was looking out for me. It knew that I was suffering from fear. On realizing this, I felt both safe and emotional at the same time. As soon as I made it safely back to the car park, the kangaroo took one more glance over at me as if to say, "You're okay now, I've got you," and then hopped off to join the rest of its mob. Now, this deep memory and connection has been with me ever since. It's hard to explain, but for me, the more I learn about the culture and the ancestors that have occupied this land for thousands and thousands of years, that feeling is somewhat, I start to understand what it's like for our indigenous cultures to have that ongoing daily spiritual connection to land and the animals. And so it's on this point, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the unceded land and pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. Now, here's a couple of quick things to run through before we kick off with today's guest. First up, the Unearthed Men community. We continue to grow and grow, which is really exciting. And it's a community where men are willing to support other men and be supported by men. And so therefore, if you're a man or know of a man who is seeking his tribe or his community, then please use the link in the show notes below to sign up. Alternatively, you can send me a message via any of the social media channels. Secondly, please subscribe to this podcast via your preferred app and leave a review. The quickest way to enable the podcast to become more accessible worldwide is to receive a 5-star review. By doing this, you also acknowledge and thank my guests for their time, effort, and wisdom. They do this for free and they allocate a lot of time and they're giving that wisdom to you. So for you to spend 2 minutes to acknowledge that would be fantastic. Finally, if you're a man struggling with the daily grind, have constant feelings of guilt, shame, or anxiety, feel irritated or frustrated, and have lost track of who you are, with a deep inner sense that there's just got to be more to life than this, then expressions of interest for my 8-week men's program is now up and open. I'm only looking to take 10 men into each 8-week program this year. Therefore, if you are interested, click the link below to join the wait list as it's filling fast. All right, now on to today's episode. My guest today is a proud Ngiyampaa man who resides in Broken Hill, which is far western New South Wales. I'll get over my words soon. As I described earlier, how far away it is. He's a wood carver of traditional Aboriginal artefacts, drawer, and all-round artist. Growing up in Broken Hill and becoming interested in the world of wood carving, he is constantly guided by his elders and community. He's a carver of boomerangs, nulla-nullas, clapsticks, and sculptural pieces. He's always sharing his knowledge as well as learning from his elders. There is something he is extremely passionate about and hopes to continue his journey into the future, as well as help teach the upcoming generations. Now, I can testify to the craftsmanship of my guest, as I proudly own a beautifully hand-sculpted boomerang made from a beefwood tree native to the Broken Hill area. When the light touches this boomerang, it's almost like it's got this beautiful holographic look, and that's the beauty of what's inside the tree. So I'm really honoured and excited to welcome to the Unearthed Man podcast, Anthony Hayward. Hey, Anthony, how are you?
How you going, Steve? Thanks for having me.
No worries. Now, I probably got, is it Ngiyampaa, man? Did I get that right, or have I totally screwed that up? Sorry, mate. Ngiyampaa. Nice. And we just had a bit of a break-up on the Zoom call there, mate. That was it. So apologies for that.
That's all right.
All right. So, yeah, as I said, I came across Anthony through being connected with other First Nations and Indigenous men. And the one thing that's really struck out was, he's just beautiful handyman work that he does on his carvings. But by the way, he is an awesome didgeridoo player as well. And those that know, I've got a couple of didgers. I've done some lessons last year in relation to learning the didge from an Indigenous man down here. It's certainly something that I need to get back into and learn a bit more, because you cannot learn that instrument overnight. And circular breathing is a phenomenon that is an amazing thing that one day I'll learn and get. But maybe I'll get a lesson off Anthony at some point. But Anthony, as I said, excited to have on here. How is life in Broken Hill at the moment?
At the moment, mate, it's to be honest, it's pretty hot. In way of my carving practice, for the most part, it's sort of slowed down after Christmas a little bit. The heat is, as you can imagine, is quite extreme, as it is everywhere. I believe Australia's in a heat wave at the moment. But so I sort of try and just potter around in the evenings and early mornings when I can, and get what I can done. But I do have a few goals and things that I have to make or get ongoing soon. So I'm still pottering and still carving, and other than that, life's pretty good. I can't complain.
Awesome. So to put that in context, when Anthony says hot, Broken Hill's probably 42, 45 degrees Celsius. So you're talking over 100 degrees Fahrenheit for all those that listen in the US, and it probably stays like that for at least 3 odd months of the year, 3 or 4 months. So it's a pretty it's pretty much getting on the border of where the desert is up in Australia, but it is such a beautiful piece of land, that's for sure.
Yeah, look, I think we're very lucky where we are in Broken Hill. We have the river, which is only an hour away. So we have the Darling Barker, so we're always happy to go and spend time there where and when we can. And then we also have some great facilities in the community itself with our local pool and things like that. So we do get pretty well looked after in that regard, Steve. So, but Broken Hill is, semi-arid desert country, extremely warm, hot in summer, very cold in winter, but the landscape, I think, is what draws people here the most. It's just an amazing place to be, as you know, and it's my home, and I can't see myself going anywhere as yet. So pretty comfortable here.
Awesome. I love that. So let's get on to that, because you're a local man, so your mob, your tribe, you're still in your country. So let's talk about what life was like for you, because as we know, that this podcast is about men sharing their journey. A lot of men have had challenges, but what is very evident is men of color, Indigenous men, Aboriginal men have had a lot of challenges that the white men would not understand or go through. And this isn't to lead you, but we really want to have a good chat about, life for you and what it looked like for you growing up as a young man and some challenges you've had. So I'll open up for you to give us a bit of the Anthony Hayward story.
Yeah, I suppose. So just a bit of background, our tribe, the Ngiyampaa tribe, are actually neighbouring tribes to the Barkindji tribe. So I will admit, so I do have to say that Broken Hill is not my traditional country, but I have grown up here. This is the land of the Nulla-nullas people, and I'm happy and I love living out here in this country. And our family has married into a few Nulla-nullas people. We have great connections with the local people here. So I suppose it all starts with, that displacement, really. My grandfather was brought up on a place called Mulundjii Mission, and for those of you who know Mulundjii with the fish kills a few years back, it's it's been in the news a few years back, and Mulundjii is a small community that sits on the Darling Barker, the Darling River, and so our people actually moved there in the 1930s onwards from our own country, Ngiyampaa country, which is around a little community called Ivanhoe. So that's going towards more Western New South Wales, between Central West and Western New South Wales, Cobar and Ivanhoe. And that's actually our country. And historically our people were moved from there on trains or some on trucks even, and were displaced. So there's a whole story around how our family ended up to be in the Broken Hill area. But we are here today. We have great community ties and connections with our fellow communities of Wilcannia and Mulundjii. Wilcannia lies 200 kilometres to the east of Broken Hill. It's quite a large Aboriginal population there, home of the Barkindji people, and my grandparents are actually buried there in that community. And we still frequent that place when we can, and it's sort of a home base for our family, if you will. But Broken Hill has been home for our family for at least the last 30 plus years. And we live here, and I've grown up here. I've had great schooling here, worked here, continue to live and work here again, and I just really enjoy being here in the far west. It has its ups and downs as well. I suppose you could say I did face racism and things like that growing up, and we do face that still today in some instances. But overall, I think Broken Hill is a great community that's going forward in a lot of aspects, and race relations is one, and community connection, and just the acknowledgement these days. For example, our local council give to our traditional owners means a lot, So there's these small steps that I constantly see that people are improving on, or communities improving on. But I think we still have a lot to work on, which is important to me. And as a wood carver, I see my skill or my craft as a way of breaking down stereotypes and connecting and educating those around me in different communities, and from the younger generation to the older generation. And it's amazing what sort of conversation you can draw out of a boomerang. And I've had some amazing encounters and some amazing customers and amazing people who've just wanted to converse around the Aboriginal culture. And it's my opportunity, really, through using the boomerang as a tool or as a vehicle, to be able to help educate those around me on the importance of our culture and where we stand today.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Anthony. I still want to go back. You use the term displaced, and we sort of moved reasonably quickly after that. And just to put that into context, of people here, just imagine that 2 generations ago, your grandparents moved to a suburb in Australia, and they've lived there. Then you grew up and you bought a house next to that, and then or your mum and dad did, and you've got this nice little family unit that you've loved and lived in your suburb. And then the government comes along and says, by the way, you're not allowed to live there anymore. We're going to actually pack you all up. We're going to stick you on the bus. You don't get to keep your house. You don't get to keep your goods. You don't get to keep anything that you've got. Walk in one day, just grab you all, put you on the bus, and say, we're actually going to move you across to this suburb over here with a whole group of people that you sort of don't really know. You're not really part of. You don't know the area. You don't know the land. You don't know where you're going to get your food from anymore. And we're going to go and do that. And we're literally talking 100 years ago. So think about if that happened to you today. And I think that's what we don't spend enough time on appreciating, that 100 years ago, if literally someone came in and just grabbed people out of their homeland that their ancestors had lived on for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And, we're still seeing historic artifacts, 60,000, 80,000 years old, and said, yep, you can't live there anymore. We need you to come over here because, you know, we want you to live this completely different life. And you weren't allowed to, let's say that you moved out here and you were Greek or you're Italian or whatever else. And then you said, by the way, you're not allowed to actually talk your native tongue anymore. You've got to learn. The only way you can do is speak English, and you're going to live in this other suburb with a whole other group of people that you may or may not get on with. That's what we're talking about. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yep.
And so, you know, and Anthony, as you're saying, like the Ngiyampaa people and the Barkindji people, right? Probably two different language groups.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
So this is the other thing. You know, there was, I think, I often hear two different numbers. It was like, you know, 250 plus languages that were within this country. And so when you displace someone, you put them in this other place, you actually say, by the way, not only can you not talk your own languages, which is two different languages, you've got to learn a language that you don't even know of or understand or appreciate. So growing up, like, how was that with your grandparents and with your parents, like having to go through that? I mean, because we do talk about trauma and we do talk about ancestral trauma and everything else. And I know the Indigenous are such a beautiful heart-led people, and that's something we can really learn from. How has that translated for yourself, or how's that translated with you and your family units, how that's come along?
Yeah, look, Steve, for us personally as a family unit, I know, as I said, my family were displaced, the start of my family were displaced around the 1930s, moved forcibly from their homelands in Ngiyampaa country, were put on a train and trained across to a little town called Mulundjii, as I said. Were placed on a mission there with the Barkindji people, who at that time our people were extremely fearful of, because they were our neighbouring tribe, and they were seen to be a very larger tribe than ours, but also a very powerful tribe as well. So you could imagine the fear of our people being forcibly removed from one area to another, and they spoke a different language. So it took a long time for our people to integrate with the Barkindji people. And it's funny now, we're all mixed and mingled, you know what I mean? The two tribes, we've all married into each other, and it's a beautiful relationship. And I have nothing but respect and admiration for the Barkindji people. I think they're amazing people. But at that time, for our own people to be moved forcibly was quite the shake-up, as you can imagine. And I've heard many stories of our elders, in protests, getting off the train and literally walking back to their own country because they couldn't stand being where they were. And a lot of our people were put onto that mission, and they were placed in tin huts with cement floors, and they died of pneumonia because the cold cement was too cold for them in winter, and they didn't know what this was. So a lot of them actually died of a broken heart, which is a really sad story from our past. And a lot of them didn't make it home to their own country again. A lot of them were buried at Mulundjii. So my grandfather, where he fits in all this, is that he was a young kid growing up in the 40s, I think, and he was a speaker of both Ngiyampaa and Barkindji, so he was fluent in both these languages. The mission, as you can imagine, we had all the Barkindji people, Ngiyampaa people, and so you got to pick up the language as a young kid. But what had happened to him is he had actually been, as a kid, he'd been punished for speaking the language, and the nuns and the people who were running the mission at the time put the fear of God into him, and he, even as an old man, he was very wary about who he talked the language to, because those bad memories of him growing up in the mission and them saying, you're not allowed to speak your tongue here, boy, and really sort of, you could tell that they had a devastating impact on him. And then settling in Mulundjii with my grandmother years after, starting a family. Grandfather worked around the place. He was actually quite respected in the community, and that's where Mulundjii carvings come from. That was my grandfather's name. And he was a man who spoke it only when he was sort of after a few drinks, I suppose you'd say, and he'd bring up the courage. And I'd also heard it say that, that he'd run out of his own people to talk his own language to. So I could imagine on the inside he was quite sad that he couldn't talk his tongue to a lot of his elders that maybe were around when he was a kid. So, and a direct impact of that is that my mother and my aunties and uncles didn't get to learn the language, and neither did I. So this is something that really deeply affected me growing up and learning that this is a lost knowledge that was held, as you said, for thousands of years, and now, within 2 generations or 3 generations, it's lost. So something that we've got to pick up again, and something that I'm constantly on the lookout for. We do have only a few, if not a couple, within a handful of elders that speak out my own language fluently still today. So so just that devastating impact alone, I think has definitely brought about a sense of grief within our own family on a personal level, that we couldn't pass down that knowledge. But that's just one impact of how things were for us. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I think that's the other part of this, the devastating story is that loss of language, because and again, I'm on a deep learning journey. And so in doing a lot of sort of reading and literature and everything else, when you're looking at things around, the song lines and the storylines and, the history, it's embedded in the language and the song and the dance. And so if that's lost, then there's a whole lot of elements about, ancestral culture that actually goes, because that's so deeply embedded in that mixture.
Yeah, and that's it. So not only do we lose that connection to language, but that connection to land as well. When I go back to Ngiyampaa country, I feel an instant connection. I know that this part of the land has been a part of me and my family for a long, long time. It's a spiritual connection that I believe can't be unbroken, regardless of whatever happens. But not being able to talk to the land in mother tongue is something that really sort of doesn't sit well with me. The land will talk to you if you spend enough time in it, as you might know, Steve, or as you might understand. And so it's really important that we continue this connection with country, as well as language, as well as a whole heap of other components with it. So in a sense, we're lucky to be able to go back and be there, but we are sometimes missing that deeper connection within being able to actually talk to the land verbally, you know what I mean, and bring on that more sense of strong connection. But in saying that, I believe that, as I said, the land will speak to you. It also recognizes you as well, and it knows who you are before you know where you are. You know what I mean? And I often have these dreams of this. I forget what they call them. Deja vus, I think they're called, or something like that. And it was funny. I had one probably about a couple of months ago of a place, and then I found myself in that place on my own country probably about 2 weeks ago. So it's these things, they're constantly talking to you, and I don't often talk about those sort of things, but these things happen constantly, and I appreciate that that gift, I suppose, of being able to be in a place before I'm there and recognize, I do believe that we are constantly guided by the land and by our ancestors.
Yeah, cynical 10, 15 year ago me, not in that space. Now, visions, synchronicity, deja vus, getting called in to see things, I'm fully aligned with that. Fully aligned with, there was a past life, there was an ancestral life, there was something that we had before this version, and that we're called into that. And sometimes we get called back into those spaces. And I think different people, get called to different things. I'm an ocean guy. Like, I get called to the ocean all the time. And so for me, my connection is that energy that the ocean and the waves and that provides to me, and other people. As you said, there's your land, and where you head back to, this, that semi-arid desert type of thing is just that innate calling that you've got that connection with. Through the displacement and everything else, because I know, again, each mob, if I'm allowed to use that term, had within its own country area, its own sacred sites, and it's men's business sites and it's women's business sites and everything. Have you still got that? Has that been able to be handed down, and you've still got an understanding and a connection about where some of those sacred sites are, and there's different energies from what I understand that actually also takes place where where you're within those sacred sites?
Yeah, so in my own personal journey, on behalf of our Ngiyampaa tribe, those sites I've never been able to us or access, and I understand that there might be locked off properties or whatever, or also places are sort of well as well, and I completely understand the fact that these sort of places are only meant to be seen by certain people as well. So I definitely don't rush or push to see any of those type of places. I fully respect my elders and their guidance around those sacred sites and stuff like that. So, and as a young fella still learning as well. And my uncle often said, who's a Barkindji man, he said, we'll teach you a little, but we won't teach you everything at once, because if we teach you everything at once, you'll think you know everything. And that's just our way of learning here in far western New South Wales. So, and I've been extremely lucky under the wing and guidance of the local Barkindji people who are my uncles and mentors, who teach me a lot. And if you come this way, you'll notice that I speak a lot of Barkindji words because I live in this community now, and my grandfather also lived with Barkindji people. And so I have a connection with these people out here, if you will, and my uncles and Barkindji people, as I said, have guided me. And one of my greatest mentors and guides and uncles is Uncle Badger Bates, who's a prolific Aboriginal woodcarver and artist, and he's quite well known in the art worlds of Australia. And he's also a great, excellent woodcarver and boomerang maker. But he often said to me, he said, look, I'm a Barkindji man. He said, but when I was growing up, and he's 74, I believe, 75, he said, when I was a little boy, he said, we used to travel around and we spent a lot of time with your people, the Ngiyampaa people as well. He said, a lot of them are elders, taught me a lot. He said they used to teach me how they made their boomerangs, and he said they used to teach him how to do different things and little tricks in the bush. And he said, so I teach you as a return, as a favour, as back to them old people. He said, we're sharing that traditional knowledge. He said, it does. He said, look, we might be two different tribes, but we all live together. He said, and so I've learned from. He said, I've learned a lot from your people, your old people. He said, and so I'm returning the favour to you, and I'm extremely grateful for that. So to be able to learn off my Barkindji mentors, as well as still get cultural information and that where it's necessary from my Ngiyampaa elders as well. So I'm extremely grateful for that. And in terms of different sites and things like that, they've shown me different things, but nothing too prolific or anything like that. But they've definitely shared with me a great deal of their culture, and I'm extremely grateful for that.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. And I think I'm coming from limited knowledge, but I'll express as much limited knowledge I have is that, when we look at Indigenous artwork or certain crafts work or whatever else, depending on where you are with that status, the level of elder, that there's different messaging that sits within it that can actually only be understood, and that gets handed down once you've got to the point where you have earned the right, if that's the right terminology, but you've earned the respect of the mob and the elders to be able to say, we're now going to pass this on to you. And so as much as we might see something as beautiful, the levels of deeper meaning that can sit in that based on the level of eldership that you hold within the mob can actually tell a complete different story or a deeper meaning on that one. And so, yeah, it's something that I know, to be honest, that I feel that I completely miss from being a white guy. Like it's just something that I know doesn't exist in my culture, that there is none of that handed down, or there's none of that almost something to aspire to be inspired by, to actually go, I would love to be seen in that regard, where someone is willing to hand that knowledge into me and trust me to be the custodian of this sacred knowledge. And it doesn't happen in our white world. And it's such a beautiful thing that I love in the Indigenous tribes. And it's not only Australian Indigenous, it's American Indigenous and Mesoamerica and all these other Indigenous tribes. It's common throughout the world, and it should be revered and respected and aspired to, as opposed to let's remove it out of fear because of they got this secret magic or whatever else. It's like, no, it's actually, that's the true essence of living life. That's where the true secrets are. And so, it's great that you're on that journey.
Yeah. I have a lot of a lot of elders who teach me different things. And just thinking about one elder who's now passed only last year, who was a great mentor and teacher to me, and he as well will teach me these different ways of learning as well. So, and one thing I've learned is that everything's a test. They won't tell you though. Everything's a lesson, but they won't tell you. But so it's up to you to sort of to pick up on their signals and signs, and because at the day we'll be asked about something, and if you missed it, which I have times, don't get me wrong, you definitely learn these lessons from your elders, and I think, and that's another really great reason why I've been who I am as an Aboriginal man, because of that learning process from my elders, and the way that our people have taught and teach for thousands of generations. I think it's a wonderful way of learning, and it's something that that's really how you really do pick up things, and you really do hold that in your mind of what they do teach us, because of that it's a very ancient way of teaching, I think, and it's a very important way of teaching. And so I'm really grateful to be on that journey, and I'm in my 30s now, but I'll continue to learn until to the day I leave Earth, and and I just really look forward to the rest of my life and what I can learn, and what I can also then, as I mentioned, what I can teach the younger generation as well. So, and that's the thing, I've been on my learning journey for the past 5-6 years personally with my wood carving, and obviously that's opened up a whole lot of other learning things as well. So what I want to do is get to a stage where I can pass that knowledge on to some of our younger generations now, because I see it as important now as ever to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you'll say this a few times, but Mulundjii carvings, like, check him out on Instagram. Anthony's got just beautiful, amazing artworks out there and carvings. So, and again, just listen to him play the dig. He does it a few times on his Instagram site as well. Can we go back and visit, like, what was growing up for you, young kid, teenager, as you said, you're in your 30s now. I'm very open and honest. Australia is a racist country. Like, I'm over people trying to dance around it, right? And you alluded to earlier, we are getting better. Councils are starting to, lean in and actually say maybe we should be seeking counsel from this. But we've only been here for 260 years, where we, colonized this country. So, what was that like for you, growing up, navigating through that? How do you find your strength? What tools or things that you've had to put into place, both for your own personal protection, safety, but also for you to manage, stress or anxiety, or to be able to see beyond things, or even becoming a compassionate man, knowing that maybe some of these people who are racist aren't nice, but are just ignorant, naive people.
Yeah, I think as a kid growing up, I didn't really notice, I suppose, racism until I sort of got into about high school, maybe. No, sorry, I do remember. I do remember seeing it as a young child. I do remember seeing what racism is, and experience it, because someone had said, "Oh, look how dark he is," talking to me, and I just thought, and I was only about 8 or 9, I think, at the time, and I thought, well, what's the, I didn't really understand the difference or why that comment was made, so, and then growing up in school and high school, again, experienced it, and I was quite shocked, and I'd often stand up for myself around racism, and I'd probably take the route of I'd probably retaliate and hit someone, I suppose, if that was the case back in high school. And then growing up, I was just about to turn 18, and I suppose I did have a bit of anger built up as a young teen. My foster father passed away when I was only 9 years of age. He was a great man, Aboriginal man as well, and a really big influence on my life. So I think I did carry that sort of anger or sadness or grief from about 9 years old onto my onto my late teens. But it was until I was about 18 that my foster mum sat me down. She said, "Look, if you were going to be going down this route of violence or want to fight or anger," she said, "you're going to end up in jail." And that scared the living daylights out of me. Just that comment alone, and that's all she said. And I thought, well, I don't want to go to. That was the last thing I wanted to do. So I decided to change my whole attitude to think, okay, well, I'm going to get a job. I'm going to go and work. I'm going to be part of society. I'm going to, and that was my plan. So I did have a lot of that, but just that one comment from my foster mum at the time made me realise that anger was never really going to be the answer to everything in life, and that I had to actually change this anger or this. And a lot of that was actually due to racism, I think, when I was a teenager as well, because as you grow up and you become a young man, you do face it, and we have faced it in Broken Hill. We did see it, being called Black Seas or whatever, or very smart aleck remarks. And it's funny, these days I find it a lot less in your face as though it was, say, 10 years ago. People would call you that for what they thought. These days it's very hidden, and they'd say it on a sly sort of way, I suppose.
Yeah.
So we do see it, and not only that, we often see it in terms of policies, and we also see it in terms of agreements made of not being made around us, and not being excluded in certain decision-making processes. So we do see it in subtle ways, but I'm very much well aware of the racism effect and what it has on our community. But like I said, I turned 18 and I went and got a job, and I started working, and and obviously still seeing this racism community. It's always going to be there, Steve, to be honest. And it's something that I suppose I've learned, or my way of dealing with it is sometimes I shut down, because I'd rather do that than retaliate, or that maybe sometimes I'm a little bit scared of what I might do if I do say something. I might say the wrong thing or whatever, or act in a way that I shouldn't, and I'm very wary of that. And sometimes, and I'm a really big believer in that, sometimes it's always better to walk away than do something that you're going to regret later. And that's the way that I live my life. I try to live very peacefully, and I try to live in a way that I don't harm others. I drive around, I go around town, I just do my own thing, and try and live a happy life, I think, and I treat people as they come. And I have a lot of really great mates in this community as well, and that's what I focus on as well. So you're going to get at it in the, but I think we always just have to stay positive, mate, because if we don't, at the end of the day, it's going to eat us up inside. I'm well aware of that, yeah.
And I think that's a really good point that you've raised, in the fact that we can somewhat choose our reaction to what other people are doing, and sort of, again, it's that whole, someone else being racist is completely inappropriate, but we could react anger, frustration, violence, which is actually bringing us down. And I'm not sitting there, sorry, when I say us, I'm talking as generally men, not as an Indigenous person or representing Indigenous people here, but anything that is confronting to us, we get to choose how we could go about doing that. And then we can see the person for what they are and what they're projecting out. And so, a lot of things that they're saying, projecting, is conditioning, their own belief systems, their own fear factor. And it's like, well, do you need to take that on as a person, or can you actually have a way to almost put up that shield and go, I'm not going to allow that to affect me because I know who I am? And I think what you've alluded to, Anthony, is that you've built up a powerful inner strength about knowing who you are as a as a proud Aboriginal man in this country, and being able to openly express that pride of who you are, and the connection you've got, as you said, with friends and with elders, and with the two mobs that you're aligned with, that, I think that's a really powerful thing for a lot of other men to learn, because often what we do is that when we react, it's because we're actually reacting from a place of weakness, because we're not proud of who we are, and so we become overly defensive. So I think that's, all credit to the fact that that flick of the switch at the 18 when it's like, okay, prison or no prison, becomes a way of, well, how do I actually now become this person that I'm proud of?
Yeah, and I often remind myself as well, and also I often sort of hint to those around me in the community of Broken Hill in particular that, Aboriginal people in this community, and not only in Broken Hill but all over Australia, but we contribute quite a lot to this community of Broken Hill. We always have and always will, and people need to learn to understand that we're not just here doing nothing. We contribute to our cultural tourism of Broken Hill. We contribute to the overall tourism of Broken. Not only that, the cultural richness of this community, and the surrounds. So and I remind myself, and I'm quite proud of that. That us as Aboriginal people, we do contribute probably more so than people would ever think. To this economy and to this society. So for people to make smart remarks or sly remarks, it doesn't really hold value to me, because I know what we do out here in the far west, and I know what our community members do, and we're proud of our of what we do and how we hold ourselves as proud Aboriginal people. So that's what I am myself as well, and I've been lucky enough to be able to build Mulundjii carvings up to be able to be a recognised sort of small business in the community that people know of and that people can refer to. And I get asked to sit on different things, and I get asked for different. And look, Steve, I'm one of them people. I just like to kick back in the background and do my own thing. You might know that I'm not very what do you call it? I really don't. I really don't. Stress for the limelight. I really just want to do what I do best and just be a part and help where I can, So, so I think for me, I just continually remind myself and others around me just that what we do as Aboriginal people out here matters, and we should be proud of that. And regardless of what other people say, we know what we do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, beautiful. I just want to go back, because you've touched on the fact that your foster father died when you're 9, and then your foster mum, and so which would then indicate that you were brought up with foster parents and not your biological mum and dad. I'm allowed to ask is to how that occurred or what took place. If you're not comfortable go there, that's okay. But I'm just intrigued as to what that looked like for you as well.
So when my mother was young, she was she was an alcoholic, to be honest. If we're going to go down that route, I'll be honest and open. Yeah, she alcoholic, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, to this day. And I love my biological mum for the well. Don't get me wrong in any way, shape, or form. And it took me a long time, and I was a teenager again when I learned that there's reasons why people do certain things in life, and then when we look back at our family history and things like that, we can understand why people go down certain paths. So that was, I suppose, part of growing up as well, was did my mother love me, didn't she, or what was going on? I felt quite lost as in a lot of senses, growing up, that I was sort of given up, so you will, to completely different parents, and why didn't my family want me or love me and all that. So, but my foster father was an Aboriginal man. He was born in the small township of Inaminka in South Australia, northeast South Australia. He was a proud Yarrawaka man, and he was brought up in the town of Tibooburra, which is in the northwest of New South Wales, and he's buried there today. God love him. And he was my father figure growing up. And he was a drover, and he was a stockman, and he was a proud Aboriginal man as well. And he taught me in my younger years, from the time I was a baby to the time he passed away when I was 9 years old, he taught me about culture as well from that side as well. So, and he taught me a lot, and I was reared up with him and his family. And then he sadly passed away again. A lot of that was due to alcohol abuse, to be honest. He was a man who loved to drink, and but he was the most gentle person you'd ever come across. He just had a love for wine, and then that was him. He was a hard worker, and he'd work it, and his brother, who my uncles, they were all big, strong men, and so these men and these people, they had profound impact on my life growing up. And I just really, to be honest, Steve, I really love my old dad, and I miss him very much. So, but he taught me some really cool, great values growing up, And I think one of the biggest things he taught me, and it's funny when you're a kid, you pick up on these lessons that you take with you for the rest of your life. I think what I can remember growing up is that he taught me just to be kind and not to be bitter or anger, or he was a very happy-go-lucky man. And my old foster mum, who's still with us today, God love her, she's here. She still continues to. She's my grounder. She grounds me. So if I get a bit of a big head, she'll pull me in line. Don't worry about that. And you'll meet her later this year when you come to Broken Hill. So awesome. And this lady, she's just an amazing lady. And yeah, again, I can't thank those two people enough for what they've done for me over the years. And also Dad's family and Mum's families for taking me under their wing. And the beautiful thing amongst this, Steve, is that my old grandfather on my Ngiyampaa side and my old foster father knew each other in Broken Hill. And they were quite good. They were good mates, and they knew each other. And there was never any hostility between my biological family and my foster family. And I can happily and luckily and openly say that I had two great families growing up. My biological family, who was always going to be there, and my foster family, who are still here today to look after me and make sure that I'm doing the right thing and all this, And so, yeah, these two families got along great, And there was, as I said, there was never any hostility or, you've got our boy or anything like that, That was very, very loving and caring. And they knew that I was with a loving, caring foster family who really loved me. Not only that, Broken Hill is a relatively small community. So everybody sees each other around, everybody knows each other anyway. So that's how that came to be. From when I was 6 months of age, right up to now, I suppose. I've lived with my foster family and that. But my brothers and sisters and that, a great connection with them, and we still see each other nearly every day and all that. So I've never lost out on my biological family or being a part of that either. So I'm very happy for that. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for sharing and going there with that, man. I really do appreciate opening up about that. That's awesome. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought there because that's such a beautiful story for you to go there. The one thing I was going to say, and again, I don't want to offend, but I am going to call out what happens. And when I hear this, it irritates me when people do the whole, look at them, they're lazy, they're drunks, they look at them, they're on drunks or alcohol. And you end up in, if you look at the Queensland government's approach of, limiting, communities can only, Aboriginal communities can't drink, or they can't do this, or they can't do that. Like, they don't do this, all that white culture that's out there. Like, schoolies can go rife in the Gold Coast and go nuts, but then you're limiting these other communities because of a perceived viewpoint. And I'll go back to what you spoke about with the displacement of your grandparents, and try to put that into context. Alcohol is one of the great emotional distractors of our life. It is promoted as that. It's promoted across all communities, be it white, brown, black, yellow, whatever you want to do. Alcohol is out there to emotionally distract you from sitting in your true feelings. So if you grab a whole culture and pick them up and go, you can't do your cultural, you can't be connected to land, you can't talk your language, and we're taking your kids away from you. Who wouldn't want to numb the pain? Who wouldn't want to find an outlet to go and numb the pain, whether that be drugs or alcohol or a combination of both? And then we know how addictive they are. So what we do is we get addictive to the numbness. It's not the individual. It's the systems around the individuals that have failed those individuals and haven't had the right mechanisms in place. So the next time you see someone, doesn't matter what color, what race, homeless, wherever you see someone out there, you've really got to honestly ask the question, what are they escaping from? The kids that are having the drugs in the nightclubs, the kids that are out getting drunk. Now, put my hand up, right? I haven't drunk now for 20 years, but I've been very open about the fact that from age of 15 to the age of 30 odd, like I drunk like a fish because I was emotionally distracting myself from everything that went around in my childhood. And I had a white privilege growing up childhood, right? So, so I sit there and go, anytime someone points the finger, I go, how ignorant of you. In fact, let me swear, how fucking ignorant of you to point a finger and judge somebody where you have no understanding, but the angle you're coming from is completely wrong. So my heart goes out to your mum, your biological mum. My heart goes out to your foster dad and everything else, because I can't imagine how challenging life had to have been, having everything ripped out from underneath you and then going into numbing substances, which then they go, this is the only way I can survive. That in itself is a level of toughness, and then the impact that has on to the generations that come in after that. So, sorry, I don't know if that's a rant or whether it helps, but my heart, it's a passion that seats deep within me whenever I hear things. And so again, thank you for sharing that. One of the other things that I wanted to chat to you about, which as we said, councils and things are slowly getting better, and we're slowly getting this, how can we be more aware and understanding of, the Aboriginal culture, and, how can we start to bring it more into our lives? But what's happening is this trend of, and I expect you to do it for free. So not only have I taken over your country and I've colonized you, but now I feel really bad about it. Can you come and do all this free service stuff for us to actually make me feel a bit better about my life and everything else? Can we talk into that? Because I know that is in a lot of places where I go, where, we have a lot of Aboriginal people talking. There was a what they call pilparin, which was sunrise ceremony on the 26th of January, Invasion Day, down here in Wadawurrung country where I live. And it was a beautiful ceremony. And so again, that's where they're often asked, can you come and do this? Can you do a welcome to country? Can you do acknowledgement to country? Can you teach us more? Can you come to our schools? With the expectation that every Indigenous person is just going to drop their day job and race over and go, yeah, sure, I'll help you out. What's your experience of that? What does it look like for you? Because, no doubt you're probably getting asked to do some few things as well.
Oh yeah, look, Steve, this has actually been one of my biggest learning curve for the past, since I've been 18. Always being a didgeridoo player, I don't know how many times I've been asked to play the didgeridoo for free at different events and things like that, and also share my cultural knowledge as well, around wood carving or whatever it may be, or different aspects. It's happened to me quite a lot, and it really took me a while to stand up for myself and say, no, this actually, this needs to be compensated for. This is what I'm giving you, a piece of me, really, and my own intellectual knowledge and stuff like that I'm sharing, or, wisdom, I suppose, and, not being able to be reimbursed or compensated for that. They'll always try and get under you, mate. They'll always try and wheel you around. Like, it happened to me 2 weeks ago, I think it was. Some people were looking for some stuff, and I said, look, okay, and I give them a certain amount of a price, I suppose, and they said, oh, no, and I just had to really hold my own, and that's the side of me I don't like to be. But sometimes I've really learnt the hard way that we have this certain amount of knowledge that we've held for so long, and they've taken nearly everything else from us, and now they're still looking to get stuff off us, what I mean? So they're still trying to sort of suck the last blood out of us, I suppose, and say, we need to get this from you so that we can benefit or look good in this eyes, or meet KPIs for this document and all this. And and I said, I'm really over it, mate. Yeah, I really am on a personal note, and it really grinds my gears that even this day and age that people think or take our culture for granted in a society or a country where we're not even really truly appreciated. People still feel the need to take us for everything that we've got. They've taken my language, they've taken a lot of my land, and now they want to take the last bit of me and what I hold. And I'm just saying no. This is not right. This is not on. And people need to be held, and organisations and institutions need to be held accountable for this, because at the end of the day, it's not them that are they're only ever going to gain something from it. We're not, and usually for them it's a financial or a funding gain, realistically. And yet we're still the people sitting on the outside. We're still the people attending these big events where we don't even really feel like we should be there, but we are there because we've asked to be in there, and we can come and do our bit. We can show our culture and that, and then we're more or less shoved off to leave, like we're not to be around here, or we're not to be seen, I suppose, in the eye only when we're needed. It's sort of like speak when you're spoken to sort of stuff. And it's, as I said it before, it's very subtle, and people have these ways of putting things in documents to making it look pretty and all this and that. But realistically, we know, and I've had quite the issue with our local county, that sort of from the past personally. And not only that, I'm really starting to become strong-headed and quite stand my ground in this type of behaviour in our community now around, just what we deserve as Aboriginal people. Ask us for stuff. Don't ask us for our own personal cultural knowledge just to utilise that for your own benefit. And also, don't ask me to do one job and then come in and sort of nitpick my brain about cultural knowledge and stuff like this, because that's another thing where you've been asked to go in and do a certain job, but then because certain events are coming up or certain weeks like NAIDOC week are coming up, and people just want to know certain things, or they're not quite, they just really want to nitpick and see what they can get out of you. What they're really doing is they're bloodsuckers, and they're trying to suck out your cultural knowledge for free, and then use that in a benefit for them in the future. So I'm well aware of that, and I've just said, look, you can pay me for the role I'm doing now, and then you can pay me again for the cultural knowledge that I'm sharing with you, because what you're doing is you're really asking me to do two roles in one, and that's not happening like that. So in the past few years, I've really started to stand my ground on that, and it's just something that, as I said, thinking better. People are also getting good at shifting things and making things move in a direction that is suitable for them. And people are very good. See these big documents that they write up, and they put all these big flash words in them. They try to fool us, I suppose, around certain things. But what they've got to stop and realise is that we also learn things too, and we know what's going on. So that's where I think about that.
Thank you for sharing that. And I just want to add a different context or a different angle, because I work in the corporate space. Imagine you started at kindergarten, you've spent your 13 years of primary and secondary school, then you went and did your 4-year degree, and you walk out the door, you've now got, effectively as a 22-year-old, you've got 18 years worth of learning, knowledge and wisdom. Would you go into an organisation and say, I'm going to actually work for free?
No,
I'm actually to do all this for free. Like, you would not do that. So why would you go and ask our beautiful Aboriginal brothers and sisters who have actually spent thousands of years learning and spend hours embedding themselves with elders and culture and learning about how it works? Why would you disregard that because it wasn't through a formal schooling thing? And this is what we've got to get away from. Education isn't a factor in primary school, secondary school, university. life lessons and life education and life learning is something that, I know in my space, because I'm in the coaching space, people go, what are your qualifications? And it's like, sure, has 35 years of lived experience count for you? I could go and get the ticket if you really wanted me to, but that's a waste of my time and money. And I'm not the person for you if you think that I'm only good because I got a ticket, right? And so I would just, so first of all, stop asking for it for free. Secondly, build relationships. Build relationships. Don't just ring up and go, we're coming into Broken Hill. I actually have heard about Anthony on the podcast. Hey, Anthony, can I have a quick chat? And then disappear. Like, build relationships, like interact with people, have a conversation, learn about them, understand where they're coming from. And then still don't ask. And then, there's an opportunity potentially for myself and Anthony to work together later on in August this year at an event, spiritual outback event. It's going to take place in Broken Hill. I would love Anthony to be involved. I'm going to pay Anthony to be involved. Now, I don't care whether I get paid to do the gig or not, because what I would like Anthony to do is I want to compensate him for those thousands of years of what he has learned through spirit and through ancestors and through his own knowledge to actually impart. For could be a 5-minute piece that he does to help us out. But that's what you need to do, right? And I'm not putting myself up on a pedestal on that. All I'm just saying is you got to do that. The other thing I'll turn around and say, please do a simple thing like if you are going to buy some artwork for your house, or if you're going to buy that nice little artifact, contact someone like Anthony and say, I'm looking to get this beautiful piece of timber, and invest in local small businesses, but local Aboriginal indigenous businesses, but speak to the person that's making it. Don't go to your local shop. Don't go online to all these flashy online places that are saying, we got true indigenous stuff. They're taking a cut. Like, again, a lot of those places are taking the piss, because what they're doing is that they know, sadly, that sometimes our indigenous artists undersell their own ability and undersell their own value of what they could put out there. And so they'll go, I'll give you $250 for this, and go and sell it for $1,000. And then they walk out going, oh yeah, but I had to have my shop and all this stuff. That's bullshit. So if you see something in a store and you love it, find out who the artist is, find them on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, go and find them, connect with them. First of all, go, hey, how much of the cut are you going to get of this? So if I was to buy through the shop, are you aware? Are you okay with it? What do you get out of it? Or secondly, go, can I just buy direct from you? As I spoke about, the boomerang necklace that I now proudly wear every time I'm out and about. And trust me, I wear it everywhere and I love it. I've just bought direct off Anthony because he put it up there and goes, hey, I've got some of these things. And I'm like, man, I'm in. There was no hesitation. And there was no bartering on price. And that's the other thing. Don't barter on price. Please, if the beautiful humans put up and go, it's $75, just go, what's your BSB and account number? I'll flick it through and it's going to come through to you, right? Stop trying to. There might be countries where you want to go and barter. I get it, right? Please don't do it in our homeland, and please don't do it to our local people who are just trying to tell us how wonderful life could be and how they could share that culture with us and give them the right level of compensation. I don't know whether that's a rant or not, but that's certainly my piece on it. Anthony, you've been massively generous with your time. I'm hoping that through this conversation, we've had an opportunity to share your story, but also for you to get some messages out there about, life for you and, but also, life for all Aboriginal people. And I know you do. I know you don't represent the other 240 odd, 50 odd nations, right? I understand that, but you can talk on behalf of a collective about the impact it's had. Is there any other things like any other messages for men that you think that they could help learn, messages for men and also messages for Australians or other nations that are listening to this that you would really like to put out there about how we can be better at embracing and supporting our Aboriginal brothers and sisters?
Yeah, Steve, I think there's two factors here that I suppose I really want people to take home. The first thing is that for our fellow Australians and our brothers and sisters all around the country, I just want to say, just please just have a quiet understanding of just how beautiful and rich your own First Nation culture is here in Australia. Try and have appreciation for that as best you can. We are not always angry and upset and banging the table. We actually have quite a beautiful and unique culture here in this country. And you might notice that I speak very softly, and a lot of our old people spoke very softly. And if you take the time to listen and to understand that, and the reason behind that is that there's no need to be angry. We don't want to be angry. We don't want to be upset. We simply just want to live in peace and work together with the rest of Australia, and try and build a better country that we can actually be proud of in the future. And the second thing is that to all the other men out there, I suppose, is that I'm not perfect. I've had my own struggles and my own upsets in life as well, and I'm continually learning from myself and from those around me on my certain behaviours and aspects of my life and some of my lifestyle choices, etc. But please don't let that get you down. That every day we're lucky to wake up and live another day and have another day, and that things do get better. And although it may seem like it's not as great as it could be today, tomorrow will be better, trust me. And I just want you to just have faith and hope, and just know that we all have our own struggles, and please don't hesitate to talk to those around you if you can, and seek that help. And I know what it's like as a man growing up in Australia, and I know that we all have our own struggles, but just please be as strong as you can, and just have that hope and keep that fire alive inside you. But other than that, I just want to say thank you, Steve, for your time.
Thank you, Anthony. Beautiful way to close up. Again, search for Anthony Hayward, search for Mulundjii carvings. All the links are definitely going to be sitting in the show notes for this. I was nervous coming into this conversation, to be honest with you, Anthony, because we interacted a bit on Instagram, but we hadn't had a chance to have this face-to-face. The one thing that is very clear, even though this is over Zoom and we're 1,000-odd kilometers away, that I just feel your heart through the conversation. I can see you are just a beautiful, heart-driven, peaceful man. You found what works for you, be it in your carvings, be it like the way to remove yourself from the noise and impart that, redirect that energy. And I think for me, it's like, this is what I see. It's like energy. We have a choice about what we're going to do with that energy. We can get angry, we can get violent, we can get frustrated, or we can turn it into beautiful pieces of artwork. It's the same energy. And if you direct it into this beauty that you produce, then the output just becomes amazing, because you're putting that energy back into what the country gave you in the first place, which is the timber. And so there's this nice little symbiotic connection of, I'm taking this energy and I'm dropping it back into what gave me the energy in the first place, which is country. So thank you. I've really enjoyed the chat. I can't wait to get up and actually meet you face to face in Broken Hill. Like, that's locked and loaded. We're definitely coming. So it'll be great to sit down and be able to, hopefully find a campfire and sit around and have a good old fashioned yarn and just talk about things. I don't know whether you're a hugging man, but when I get there, you better be prepared. I'll give you a notice, because you'll be getting a hug, because that's how I operate. So we can go from there. So anyway, have a beautiful, peaceful day. Hopefully you can stay cool in Broken Hill, because I know it's stinking hot at the moment up there. And you have an awesome day. And again, thanks for your time. It's been beautiful chatting with you. Have a beautiful day. Cheers, man.
Thank you.
So as I said, what a awesome conversation just to sit down with Anthony. I'll say it again, Mulundjii carvings, as he said, that was his dad's name, I think, from what he said. So his grandfather's name, sorry. So his grandfather's name. And so what a beautiful honour to his grandfather to call his business after that. Such a beautiful, heart-led man, and I think that's the lesson we can all take out of this. There's a lot of noise and a lot of distraction that goes around us, but again, how do we just rechannel that energy to come out of being positive and and come at it from love. So, like a lot of the chats I have with these guys, I just end up being quite buzzy and so forth. So for me, as I said, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn under Stephen Milverton. For Anthony, again, just look up Mulundjii carvings and you'll get to see the awesome work he's doing. If you get a chance, Outback Spiritual Festival. I'm not actually there promoting it, but I am. It's in August 26, 27. It's up in Broken Hill. Make the trek up there. Anthony, I believe, is going to have a stall up there, so you'll actually be able to meet him and actually purchase some stuff directly. I'm certainly starting to put money away in my bank account because there's a good chance I'll be coming home with some new gifts from being up there as well. So I'm going to wrap that up. It's now, episode 59 of the Unearthed Man podcast. Wishing you all much love, care and peace. Have a great day.